right, everybody. Welcome to the Evolution Security Podcast. This is Aaron and Eric Davis. Bro, happy birthday.
Happy birthday back to you. Big
This-
5-0, I guess it is.
Yeah, this one's again a little anchor man here. This is a big one. But
It's
I've
been
had
fun. It's been a nice weekend.
real nice weekend and I just let's see here. So our sister had a real neat party for us. You weren't there, but you were on speakerphone at one point or FaceTime. But we had a great time. And then yesterday we spent the whole day on the lake and spent the night at Becky's best friend's house. And they did the very, very rude thing and bought me a really nice bottle of bourbon on my birthday. And for some reason, we made sure that thing was almost empty by the time we were done with the day.
Ouch.
And so I'm hydrating right now. Let's just put it that way.
I tell you, I'm going to talk a little bit about, not that gifts are everything, but yeah, I got some pretty darn cool gifts that we can talk a little bit because some of it's related to this particular topic.
Yeah, well, we'll talk about it then. But yeah, I'm jealous of your birthday gift, bro.
I didn't tell you about the other one too, so
you got more? Okay,
yeah, I got another one.
Well, then, man, let's kick it off here. We have our really good friend Chris Lapre on for the 5th time, and Chris, can you tell us a little bit about that and what we also have planned?
Yeah, man. This is the 5th time, and I really appreciate being on here. And I know we talked about it. You guys get the time this afternoon, so do I. We're going to we'll end this one, roll right into a 6th one, and be ahead of Cecil, like shut his shit talking down. So thanks for doing that for me, guys. I appreciate it.
You're very welcome, Chris. We love keeping this shit talking going between you and Cecil.
Oh yeah, man. Yeah, it's great. And hey, number 6, Cecil, be ready.
It's unfortunate when you've got two great friends that also want to compete on the number of episodes they have. And which friend do you choose? I guess it's the one that is on that week,
That's right.
And if you can help us get another episode in the can just right after this one, why not?
100%. Yep, for sure. So,
all right, bro, I'm handing it off to you because this is a topic that I really want to talk about. But man, you've teed this all up. So let's get going.
Yeah. So Chris, man, again, seriously, welcome back onto the show. You always bring incredible knowledge, and this I no doubt is going to be the same thing. So I got back on a carbine kick. I don't know really how I started this kind of shotgun thing, and then all of a sudden I started circling back. It's like, oh, I want to really focus on carbine again, and it is something that's kind of been on my mind, and I've been spending a lot of my range sessions with carbine again. And I think here in a second, we're going to kind of talk about, okay, really, where is that balance, especially for civilians? But before we go into the topic, real quick, give us a summarized bio. You can make it pretty quick because we'll send folks back to some of your first episodes. But in case somebody's on here and doesn't happen to know you, give them a summary.
Chris Lapre, I've been out in Arizona since 99, originally from Massachusetts. Been a peace officer in Arizona since 99, so almost 25 years. Spent a majority of my career either in special investigations or criminal investigations, and also I've got 17 years on our SWAT team as a member, serving in every position pretty much up to commander, with the exception of snipers. I never did the sniper thing, man. So.
Well, I'm sure you would probably do just fine as a sniper as well. Yeah, we always talk on a regular basis about your capabilities as a shooter. I've spent several classes with you, and you're always at the top. And and so your experience also, I would count you as a training junkie as well. Would you, I mean, I don't know if that's the right moniker, but I mean, you're one of the most trained folks I know in firearms.
Yeah, man. I will admit that I did my first official class in 2001 up at Gunsight, and it was the old Surefire Institute Low Light Instructor School,
Mm.
and that kind of just built a. You have training cops and you have cops that don't train, and somewhere in the middle is another group. But I went there and I was like, wow, I really don't know anything. The agency doesn't provide the training I need, and that just kind of started me down a path, man. And then in 2003, having a home base here, home base range right down this, literally 10 minutes from my house, I started bringing in instructors. I think my first instructor I brought in was Jeff Gonzalez.
Oh, nice. I
Yeah,
trained with Jeff. Mm-hmm.
and then it was Pat Rogers and just everybody that you can imagine. Man, we've hosted at this range, um, and that was what 20, 21 years ago, and we're still bringing guys in. Not quite as often because there's such a large variety of training guys out there now, but a majority of the large name guys we bring in almost monthly. Once the weather cools off, there's somebody training at the range here in Casa Grande.
Well, I would like to mention that the first time I the first time I met you,
Yeah.
was when you were hosting Craig Douglas for ECQC. That was my first ECQC in 2010, right there on that range. And man, what an incredible experience. And boy, did that kick off, a big part of my life for certain. So thanks for being that host there.
Hey, no problem. I truly enjoy it. I think people need training in order to be efficient at skill at arms.
Absolutely. Well, so Chris, let's go ahead and move on to the actual topic, and that is carbine or rifle. However folks want to, however they want to look at it. So, where does the carbine or rifle fit within this self protection and self defense path that we're on?
My personal opinion, I think it fits as kind of the ideal self defense, personal protection system for home defense. And here's why. Number one is magazine capacity, right? Number two is, whether people want to admit it or not, it's a rifle round, so it stops bad guys pretty darn effectively. And if you use the right ammo interior wise, you're not going to get over penetration. And there's been hundreds of studies done to prove that a 5.56 in the right bullet will not penetrate anywhere near as far as a 9mm 40 or 45. Um, Especially now with I don't want to say the ease, but the availability of suppressors. So now I have a 3-point weapon system. I have 3 points of contact, extremely accurate, suppressed, large magazine capacity, the ability to mount a red dot and a white light on. And that's pretty much the ideal weapon system I could use for personal defense, whether it be at home or on a farm against animals or anything like that. For me, when people ask me, I'm like, hey man, a 5.56 carbine, a good quality one. If you can if you live in a state that allows it, put a suppressor on it, put a white light, and then a red dot when time or money allows, and get training. I've had this conversation with Larry Vickers is real big on like, hey man, and this is from a conversation we had years ago. He's like, oh, I think the most important addition you can make to a carbine is a red dot. I disagree. That's just my opinion. I think it has to be a white light first, because we all know we can shoot iron sights pretty damn good, right? Especially at house distances. But I can't shoot something I can't identify, and I think a white light is the absolute most important addition I can make to a carbine.
That's a real good way of putting it, and I have to agree with you because for many years, speaking of Jeff Gonzalez, I took his carbine and pistol course back in Georgia when I was still a soldier back 2004 timeframe, because
Yeah.
I was about to deploy to Iraq, and he was specifically giving me tips here and there, things to prepare for. One of them, incidentally, I'll never forget. He's like, "Hey, if you can, if your armor can at least get you regular 193 ammo instead of 62 grain green tip."
Yeah.
And and so that was one of the little things that he said to me. But there were all kinds of things I learned from him. But my point is I came to that class with an iron sighted carbine with a white light and a sling,
Yep.
and back then I could see well enough that we were doing stuff all the way out to 200 or 300. It was
Oh,
at least 200, and
yeah. I was gonna
I
say
could
with
see.
Jeff, I bet it's at least 200.
Yeah, so that was a really, really good class, and so shout out to Jeff if he's possibly listening. But I agree with you. The white light is way necessary. It's the most important addition. I agree.
Yeah, for
So
sure.
with that said, I was going to bring up this point too, because you're kind of summarizing my thoughts on the carbine. And I think in the community we can be bad. I know I can possibly be bad about it too, is beating up on people that seems to be their only focus though. So it's kind of convenient to kind of beat up on the folks that are so into carbine, but still yet it is my main defensive tool. If I can get to my carbine, it is absolutely my main tool. You're about to say?
Yeah, I agree, man. I think people, you have in the show notes, man, the entertainment thing, right?
Yep.
I get that. I guess that people want to do stuff and put plate carriers on and run around, and it's like, hey, man, at least they're doing something productive to gain training to make their skill set better and make them more effective with that platform, right? Hey, some people go golfing, some people go water skiing, whatever. I don't do either of those. For me, shooting and pistol and carbine is what I like. And if you like it, whether you're a IT guy or you're a SWAT dude, hey man, why not do it, right? Um, but to follow up with what you said, you guys mentioned something. I can't remember if it was one show 117 or 125. I was listening to it, catching up on the shows this past couple days, and you guys were talking about extended distance shooting, like 200-300 yards with a carbine. And I think it was Aaron. I don't know if it was Aaron or you, Eric, that brought it up about justification of use of deadly force at those distances, right?
Yep.
Um, that's where I think it gets a little clouded. Now, do you absolutely have to have that skill? 100% practice it, but it doesn't need to be your main focus. I think if your focus is primarily 0 to 50, right? Great. And then maybe say 75% or 70%, 0 to 50, 20%, 50 to 200, and then 10%, 200 and out, maybe to 4 or 500. I think you've got a pretty solid platform to work off of, especially if you're in urban or semi-urban environment, because you having to stand up before a court and a judge and a cop and a jury and go, yeah, man, I felt this guy was a threat to me at 300 yards. That's pretty hard to
Yep.
negotiate, man. And especially when you think about the average law enforcement sniper shot, it used to be 79 yards or 76 yards. I think they've actually backed it off to 63 yards now. I was
Wow.
listening to my guys talk, and they're talking about the new official FBI stats on sniper engagements, and it's like, yeah, man, like I think being a sniper is cool, man. It's something I missed in my career. Wish I had done it just for the training aspect and the knowledge aspect. But realistically, man, I'm like, you guys want all this cool stuff because now they come to me for the equipment, and I'm like, you
Yeah.
sit across the street, it's like 25 yards.
Yeah.
I'll give a guy a red dot with a 3 power magnifier. He'll do the same thing. It will cost me a lot less money budgetarily.
Yeah. Yeah. It is interesting that you do bring that up, but yes, I agree with the 50 yards and in, just from my own personal experience. And again, my thoughts on the legal side, legal justification of things. There is something to be said, however, and pointing back to the longer distances, of just having the skills to be
Yes,
able to engage at those distances. So I think if a lot of folks look at it as, hey, this is a skill development, if I can, engage targets 2, 3, 4, 500 yards and be effective at it, it just makes me a better marksman, you
yes,
know. And I will say this, it kind of segue into another question is, I'm thinking about it this way. Isn't it still a patriotic duty to be a decent rifleman? What are your thoughts on that?
that's what this country was founded on, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So that says it all right there, man. Absolutely, that individualism and preparedness to be able to take care of yourself, hunt for yourself, all of that stuff, whether people want to accept it or not, that's all part of being an American. And the fact that you should be able to know how to shoot a rifle out to distance absolutely is, as far as I'm concerned, a mandate for American citizens.
Well
Well, and
said.
one thing I like to say also, and need to remind people of, is that that musket they had, that was the contemporary of the day, right? AR-15,
Yes.
maybe even more like an M16, right?
Yeah.
And they were able to have it, right? So I I was thinking of a meme to put together that, introducing the AR-15 and it being a musket,
Yeah.
but yeah, I just like to interject that because that is a fact from a patriotic standpoint and from a rights standpoint, right, guys?
I think it's oh God, what's his name? Victory First. I just Steve Jaques. I just blanked out on his first name. But he has that T-shirt, and it's the picture of the M4 all done up with the red dot, the suppressor, and everything, and it says the modern musket. So it's a pretty cool T-shirt, man.
Heck, I
Yeah,
might
that
have
is
to
cool.
get one of those, man.
Yeah, we might. I'm writing a note here.
Yeah, put
Victor,
that in the show notes, bro.
oh, God, I can't even think of his, but it's Jaques, but I just blanked out on his name, man.
No
But
problem. We'll try to find it.
um, guys, so one thing that I did right that I wanted to bring up in this class that you can get together with, and I'd never done it before, and I was out in Texas with my buddy Dave at Rogers Rangers, and we were kind of messing around, and he takes a group, every group of students he gets, we go out to the long distance range, which I think is 1,400 yards or something like that, 14 or 1,800 yards. And we just do data collection with our guns. And there's guys running Mark 18s all the way up to SPRs, 18, 20-inch guns. And he sets steel at basically every 50-yard marker, so all the way out to 600. And we just get behind the gun and see what the guns are capable of, what ammo. So it's like, hey, what's your gun? What's your ammo? What optic? And those type of things. And we'll just shoot. And you'll have a spotter. All right, let's hit the 50. Boom, boom, boom. 50's good to go. Let's hit the 100. Boom, boom, boom. You start to see abilities, ammo, and guns taper off right around 350 or so, 400, depending on the gun. 14.5 to, of course, 18-inch with like a 77 grain OTM or something like that. You'll push 600, 650. The big issue with the 5.56 at that distance is wind. If you
Yeah.
have any kind of crosswind, you're really having to hold some mills. But man, that was one of the biggest eye-opening things I've ever done. And it was, you look at it and go, okay, we're going to go lay prone and just shoot out to distance. And then you're like, wow, I can do some pretty good work with a 11.5 inch or 10.5 inch gun out to 350, 400 if my ammo and my optics allow, right? And then as we get further out, LPVOs with good ammo and a 14.5 to 18-inch gun really allows some work to be done at distance.
Cool.
Yeah, I like that. What class was that again, Chris?
So it's my buddy Dave Bush. He runs Rogers Rangers. I do some work out there with him, and it's unfortunately he's not teaching military. I'm sorry, he's not teaching LE or civilian classes right now because he's so backed up with contract stuff for the government. So I just go out there and help him with some marksmanship stuff. He is a former A squadron guy from
Ah,
the unit, and you think simplicity is going to be boring, and it's like, no, man, this dude's got a data dump of information, and we'll get into that and zeroing. He's the one that taught me, and Aaron, Eric, you might have heard about this, is dialing a mill. If you have a mill, just dial up 1 mil, and now you have that 4-inch capability out to 350, where you just hold center. Um, Pretty impressive stuff that I've never even heard of. And he's like, "Hey, I do this, dial a mill." He's like, "I'd get off the bird, I'd dial a full mill." He goes, and now I extended my range, my lethality out an extra 100 or 200 yards. Pretty
Oh yeah, I
informative.
look forward to hearing about that.
oh yeah, very very cool. See, this is again bringing the knowledge for certain, Chris. well, well, my thought on the direction of this topic itself. What does a fundamentals course look like with a carbine? Say for both. Let's just give it a broad, LE and civilian. Let's stick it in that realm.
So basics first, right? Basic marksmanship. I think everybody needs to know how to zero the carbine, number one. Both irons and red dot. I know people go like, why are we still teaching iron sights?
Yeah, why not?
There's people that can't afford a $2,000 Daniel Defense with a $700 or $800 aim point, or a $500 EOTech, or $1,000 LPVO. So let's, for the primary purpose they're going to use that gun for, iron sights will do just fine. Zero them in at 50 yards and teach them to use the gun properly, manipulate the rifle. So I think manipulation, zeroing, and understanding offset are the three biggest things that I would teach somebody, because you can take like the highest skilled dudes, man, and if they don't practice it enough, for the most part, that offset becomes a secondary thought until they go, "Ooh, yeah, I forgot my offset." You know,
Yeah.
so that is a huge thing. That would be my three big things I would teach, because if I can teach manipulation, and I would do most of my manipulation dry fire. Hey guys, go do all your manipulations dry fire. Come to the range, we'll validate it, right? We'll do a few sets of one reload one, so I understand that you're able to reload the gun with no problem. We'll do some malfunction clearances. Everything else needs to be based off of like live shooting. I don't want to be teaching um, manipulation while I'm also teaching shooting. Does that make sense?
Oh,
I can do
absolutely.
all of that dry fire, and I just validate it on the range, and I move on to shooting techniques.
Well, Chris, I was going to add something to just zeroing, right? And some people are like, zeroing, that's the basics, blah blah blah. Well, they're the same people that chase their zero,
Yes.
you know, and I just see zeroing as an opportunity to double down on your basics and your marksmanship capabilities. So, zeroing shouldn't be poo-pooed on at all, because number one, you need to be revalidating your zero on a regular basis in the first place. As weather changes, humidity differences, you
Yeah.
still need to be validating your zero.
Or if you bumped your optic or something.
Yes. I was just going to
Mhm.
get into that. Every time we start a carbine um, training evolution with SWAT, first thing we do is confirm zeros, right? You get guns that ride around in cars that are not in racks, or they are in racks, and that thing's sitting there vibrating while it's being bounced around down a dirt road. Or like my carbine sits on my inside leg between my center console, and it's being smacked between my leg and my center console and stuff like that. You get guys that carry them in the trunk in a pouch, or it's not a pouch, but a freaking case,
Case.
and it's like, yeah, man, no optic is impervious to everything. And we do see shifts at times. Man, different lots of ammo will shift to zero. So I think it's an absolute importance. And this is a frustrating point for me, is we zero several times a year, right? Because we do a lot of carbine training and stuff like that. And it's just a good habit to get into. Hey, we're going to zero, get down. This shouldn't take any more than 10 minutes, right? And here we are 45 minutes later, guys still don't know how to zero their guns. And I'm like, hey, man, you've been on the team so many years, or you've been a cop for so many years. You need to go home and understand how to zero your rifle. We're going to show you again, and then it's on you. And I don't have that much of a problem anymore, but initially we had that problem for a while. And I'm like, guys, you don't have to be a gun guy. You don't have to be me and have an enjoyment of guns, but you need to be a your gun guy and understand how your gun works. And it seems to have fixed itself for the most part with some of the guys coming up.
So when it comes to zeroing, I have one quick question, and a lot of us are going will show up to a class, right? And we're probably, some of us, especially me, I'm probably bringing range ammo, 55 grain. I'm probably zeroing to that, but there's 77 grain uh, Sierra bullets in this short barreled rifle here.
Yep.
When you're having guys show up, especially LE guys, when you're zeroing, are most of those guys shooting, what they would actually carry? That's something I'm curious about.
So
In other words, like right here pretty soon, I'm actually going to be able to take a class from you. I don't think I'm going to get to take the carbine portion. We'll see, but would it be proper for me to show up with some of my good ammo to go with? Okay.
And I'll clarify that statement. So what we do, and I apologize for not clarifying that.
No, that's fine.
So we use I just showed it to, it's this 64 grain Ranger as our duty ammo, but our practice ammo is 55 grain Winchester, right?
Okay.
And that changes all the time depending upon state bids and all that kind of crap. What we have found within the distances that we're shooting, most of our stuff for SWAT is 50 yards and in, right? We'll do some 100 and 200 yard stuff. But for a majority of the stuff that we're doing, the deviation is so little that we don't bother changing. Like, hey, the guys will confirm zero with the 55 grain. Okay, they're, an inch and a half low and maybe, a half inch left. It's like, hey, man, that for what we're going to do, that's plenty accurate. And then we confirm with duty ammo, and the gun's usually spot on.
Rock on.
So yeah, it's for that kind of shooting where it's not a marksmanship course like Eric's talking about, or a data producing course where we want to get the absolute most out of our gun. 55 grain and 62 grain are close enough that you can do all the work that you need to do.
Man, that's good to know. Cool.
I think folks will appreciate that opinion there, Chris, because I know folks can get bent around the axle around that. And incidentally, I'm just going to bring myself into the conversation. I had been doing a lot of purposeful changing between ammos in some of my experimentation that I've been doing recently. And that's exactly what I am finding too. Just the difference is so minimal. It was eye-opening to me because I've done stuff where I'm just purely focusing on using my 77 grain and zeroing exactly to that.
So
go ahead.
No, all I was going to say, man, is where you start to see the difference is at distance, right?
Yep.
Like 55 grain Winchester white box is not going to perform at 300 or 400 like 77 grain Black Hills OTM, mod 262, mod 1, that stuff right there, man. I have a 16-inch gun in my closet that's set up with a like a 1 to 10 or something. It's an actual target scope, an old sniper scope, and that's a sub-minute gun at 100 with that ammo. It is scary accurate. It's a BCM, just mil spec barrel that I had sitting in my safe, and I'm like, you know what, man, I kind of want to build a little SPR out of it, so I built it up, and I got some 77 OTM, and I shot my first group, and I was like, what? And I went down there and looked, I could not believe the quality of that ammo. That stuff is insane.
It is, man. It's so hard to beat, when you're just working pure accuracy.
So
And the guys, I'll just put it this way too, the young men out there in Afghanistan, because Afghanistan presents some interesting problems, and it's mainly because of the terrain. Unlike Iraq, which you're going to be, in a lot of cities and, some possible more extended distances. But man, these young guys out in Afghanistan, that's where the SPR really
yes,
came into light, was in Afghanistan. And that 77 grain is getting the job done at those 500, 600, 700 yards very, very effectively.
yeah, it is a, especially out of an 18 to 20-inch gun. Um, it is a phenomenal bullet. It really is. It's outstanding. Just to go back on something is zeroing, and it was in my brain a few minutes ago, and I just want to bring it up if it's something you guys want to touch on or not. The whole 25-yard zero thing, guys, is and we'll get into that in the show notes, I'm sure, but everybody wants to go off of, a lot of old school dudes are like, I'll just zero at 25 and I'm good out to, 4,000, miles. Hey, that original zero was developed for a 20-inch carbine with a 55 grain bullet, right? And how many of you guys know are still running around with an M16A2 or an A4, right? Everything is condensed now. Easy to get an SBR for the most part, or guys are still running some pistols. Um, so that 25-yard zero, if you have the capability, at least push it out to 50, because it's not a true 25 300. There's a lot of deviation in there. And there's a couple of charts floating around on the internet. I think if you do a 25 at 100, you're over the head by like
Yep.
6 inches or something like that.
Yeah, it is definitely higher. And that zero, of course, my time in the Army, I had courses, professional courses when I was a soldier, and I despised that zero. And and so yeah, I mean, the 25. So if we think about the physics of it, and try to represent this for listeners that this may be a little newer concept. For you have a 2.5 inch offset of your sight over bore. For you to zero point of aim, point of impact at 25 meters, you have to launch that round higher, faster, right?
Yeah.
So that creates a higher parabola that bullet arcs in. So then at those distances of say 100, 150, 200 meters, yes, your round is high, quite high. And I should have that stuff to memory, but my thought process is essentially the size of a head
Yes.
and distance, right? So if you're aiming at somebody's head with that zero, you're going to shoot right over them.
Yes.
Is the main point behind that. And frankly, we were taught in the Army, when you're doing a standard pop-up range qualification, is to go figure aim at the bottom of the berm, because you have, or not at the bottom, excuse me, at the bottom of the target. So you have this, you can put your front sight on just the top of the berm, and that just means that your round's going to hit right into the silhouette.
Yeah.
Right. So again, that kind of drives home the proof that, that zero is not, it's not the best zero. I'm a 50-yard zero
Yeah.
all the way.
I haven't played with 36-meter zero or 36-yard zero. I can't remember which one it is. I think it's 36 yards. But I hear guys get good results out of that. I have not messed with it, just because I've been running a 50-yard zero with a red dot for so long that it's worked for everything I've needed it to do. So I don't really change.
I find it interesting, Eric, if you recall several years ago when we took Travis Haley's course, that before it was like he was advocating that 36-yard zero on some of his videos.
Mm-hmm.
Then we show up to that class and we're zeroing our rifles, and he's doing 50.
Yeah.
So it's like I don't remember his. I think I asked him, why are I thought you had advocated that 36, and it was kind of like, oh no, we're doing 50. You know, I don't remember if you remember that, Eric, but
I kind of do. But I wasn't sure if he was totally advocating the 36 yard or if he had just spoke of the efficacies of it at some point. I could be
I
wrong
see.
on it.
Okay. Well,
But
I could be wrong, and remember that was when I was barely getting into the game of this stuff. So
so Chris, this is me asking out of ignorance. So this is one of my birthday gifts here.
Ooh, is that a 1-6 razor?
Yeah, it's a 1-6 razor, right? And so I'm new to running LPVOs. I'm going to be straight. I was a little anti LPVO, for just because at the point when my eyes could see well enough, I just prefer the performance in most engagement distances with the red dot, and I could see well enough at 200-300 to be able to use the red dot very
Yeah.
effectively and still also discern my target. Now, if we start talking about PID and all that stuff, then yes, there, you can argue with the naked vision, even good vision, it's going to be hard to tell if somebody's really a threat at 300. But that said, I am definitely to the point where I am needing optics, or needing an LPVO for me to be able to continue decent marksmanship at distance. I just can't, my eyes, I can't do it anymore. So do you still zero LPVOs at 50 as well?
No, I do an LPVO at 100.
Okay. That was my thought on it too. That's what I was planning on doing.
Yes.
But just with no real experience with it, I just wanted to know your thoughts on it.
So the 1-6, that is that an HD too?
Yeah. Yep.
So if you unscrew the caps, that should be 0.2 mil for
Yep.
elevation, right?
Roger.
Okay, cool.
Yep. Yep.
So
It should be both, I
once
believe.
you, do you have a ranger you can shoot to 300 or 400 with?
Yes. I have a range out to 300, the one I belong to.
Do they have steel out, enough steel to set like every
So
50
I
yards?
have my own steel.
Okay.
They do have a steel target out at 3, but I've got some BC steel
Okay.
myself.
So here's what I want you to do. When you get that thing mounted, get a good solid 100-yard zero on it. Lock your turrets or zero basic,
Zero it out. Mm-hmm.
zero it out,
Mm-hmm.
and then shoot every 50 yards out to 300. See how your accuracy or your hit probability is. And then now holding center of mass, I'm talking, right? Hold center of mass out to 300. And then what I want you to do is dial up 1 mil. So that would be 5 clicks, right? And then repeat the process and tell me what your hit probability is dialing a mil. And you're going to see your hit probability is going to go through the roof, especially if you can get further distance. If you,
I'm pretty pumped about trying that out, Chris, frankly.
yeah,
Yeah.
if especially if you can find a place where you can go out to 500, really give that a shot now, because now you're operating the gun within a like, what's a mil, 3.62 or some 3.60 or whatever it is. So now you're operating within that 4-inch gap, and it's pretty freaking scary, man. I wish I was the guy that was able to take credit for that, but there's dudes way smarter than me that came up with that. That it took me 21 years of shooting to have that little secret embedded in me.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'm really looking forward to that. And yes, I do have the capabilities to shoot at a range, I think that is out to 600,
Okay, even better.
just outside of Bragg. So
Yeah,
we'll or excuse me, Liberty. I hate calling it Liberty.
shut up.
Not that that's a bad name or anything, but my time there as a soldier was Fort Bragg. So,
yeah.
but okay, cool. Yeah, I mean that's certainly something that is new for me. I'm waiting on my mount.
Okay.
Kyle DeFore recommended the Bobro engineering mount.
Yeah, super good mount. Hard to come by. But yeah, great mount. I'm seeing if I have my notes from Dave on the whole dial and mill and all that stuff, if I can clarify anything on it, but I don't know. Yes. Yeah, one mil is 3.6 at 100. Yeah, let's see here. That is not from him. That's from somebody else. I'll snap a picture of my notes in one of my trusty books, and
Awesome.
I'll send it over to you guys.
Cool. That'd be great, buddy. For education purposes, certainly. Well, yeah, I am excited about this. My mount. See, you're right. I didn't notice that it was out of stock, and when I ordered it, I'm like, oh, there it is. Oh, click. And then I ordered it, and then I saw the date of delivery is like at the end of the month. So,
Yeah,
but that's all right.
it sucks. That thing's sitting there, and you're like, man, I want to shoot this
Yeah, I
thing.
know. I'm like, it's like Aaron. It's like when we first got our skateboard decks, but we didn't have trucks or wheels or anything. It's like my LPVO sitting here.
100%. That's a good
The only
drawback to the teenage years. Yeah.
the only thing I would say, Eric, is or for both of you guys is I'm not nearly as fast up close with LPVO.
I am concerned about that a
Yeah,
little bit. Yeah.
I've got some guys on my team that are running them. They wanted it for that capability, and they're close, but head to head, man, they're just not there. And the biggest thing is understanding. Like once you get that cheek weld and it's consistent, standing, kneeling, prone, put a hash mark on your stock with like a Sharpie or something like that, a bright colored Sharpie, so like, okay, boom, there it is. And so you're not doing the whole this thing.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's the thing about, and again, that was why I was kind of anti-LPVO for years when my vision was such that I could continue to use the dot. Is they
yeah,
are, at especially 50, and I mean, heck, 100 and in, they're just so fast.
yeah,
The
yeah.
dots fast, and you not concerned with eye relief, eye box, all of that good stuff, like you are with an LPVO. But I'm excited about the new adventure with it for certain.
So
Yeah.
bro, your razor, is it Milrad, or excuse me, it's MRAD, or is it Mill?
Oh, it's
Okay.
milliradian
Okay.
Yeah.
is the
Pardon me,
actual.
guys. It's
Yeah, I'll never have anything but mill.
MOA. Yeah. See,
Yeah.
it's see, you guys. I told you, Chris, the other day that I got to dust off my carbine skills,
Yeah,
and
man.
I'm getting these measurements mixed up. So
No
okay.
problem. It's just so easier to stick with the one
Yeah,
system. My precision rifle is a mill scope. I will remain mill because now I am having, because I was spending a lot of time with long range stuff in Washington, and I learned a ton. I was shot a few PRS matches, learned a ton, but I'm starting to forget some of my measurements that I had once to memory. But with the carbine, it's not as important, but it is still a factor. You're going to say, Chris?
yeah. As I say, man, growing up in the '80s and stuff, man, when John Plaster's book "Sniper," the Ultimate Sniper,
Oh
came out,
yeah, I got
and
that book downstairs.
yeah, everything was minute of angle, and right. So all my scopes were minute of angle, and then I go out to Dave's, and he's like, "What? What kind of stupidity is this?" And just berated me about how MOA is for idiots, And I hope the audience doesn't take that the wrong way, but he was just like, "Nobody uses MOA. You need to use milliradian." And I'm like, "Dude, I don't know what you're talking about." So I got this last 3 years. I'm like, "Okay, I need to have mill. If it's not in mills, I'm not taking it to Texas because I don't want to be clubbed with it."
With it. Wonk.
Yeah, exactly. So I look at optics and I'm like, all right, yeah, it's not mill radian. I'm not taking it,
Yep.
dude.
Especially in today's age,
Yeah,
all the companies are doing mill. They still produce minute of angle. Again, why folks would want that. Again, I'm going to say your phrase, not trying to insult people, because I'm not an expert per se especially at long distance. I'm a decent carbine shooter, 300 and in. That's where I kind of live. But speaking of, personal, give us a rundown of your main personal and your main work carbine, if you don't mind.
Um, pretty pretty similar guns. So I just got a brand new upper for my work gun, so please forgive me. This is not completely set up with my lights and lasers and stuff on it. So this is this is a Colt Commando lower that was issued to me in 2007.
Wow.
Still going
Cool.
strong.
Yep.
This is my
And you said this is your work carbine?
This is my work gun. Yeah. EOTech, man, I used to be pretty anti EOTech. We started doing some work with these guys about 2 years ago, and these new XPSs are just phenomenal. They've held up. They're great optics. So I'm real happy with them because I was a dyed and wool aim point guy, man. Like you couldn't red dot aim point. I wouldn't even look at anything else, but man, these things are holding up really, really, really well, and we beat on them pretty hard. I mean, you can see this gun's. Well, I'll put it this way. I think this is my 5th upper on this gun, and one of my uppers has been rebarreled 2 or 3 times. So I shoot. We
You're
shoot
pretty
carbine.
rough on them, huh?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's to say the least. So this is 11.5-inch Commando. This is a Psionics upper out of Tucson. Been really, really, really happy with their stuff. Very accurate guns, very reliable, and just great company. So no problems there with this. That's that. It's got a war comp on it for my suppressor, my work suppressor.
And what ammo are you running in that one? The 64 grain bonded? Yep.
4-grain bonded Winchester.
Yep.
This here was my personal upper. That was been rebarreled off another upper that I had, and I was running this for work because I was funneling the new uppers down to the guys that were coming on the team because they needed them more than me. So this is I replaced this aim point because when I took this to Texas to go shoot with Dave, his EOTech went down because it was his original one from the unit. So I gave him my personal EOTech to use, and I just dumped one of my aim points on it. This is
slumming with a T1 or 2.
It's a T1. Yep.
Okay. I'm kidding. That's still my preferred my preferred red dot, at least.
100%.
Or the 2.
I have a Comp 3, man, that I bought in 2002 or 2003 when they first came out. That thing's got to have, I don't know how many thousands, probably hundreds of thousands. It's still great optic.
So I, on one of my ARs, I still have my original M2, or as the Army calls M68, which is similar to that. And I took that, my commander, I said, "Hey, sir, can I put my M2 on my M4?" At that point, we weren't getting, we were lucky to have M4s,
right?
But in a support role. But yeah, I put my aim point on that rifle, and again, that thing is still running strong on one of my older rifles.
Ridiculous, man. They're great optics. So this was an original Colt upper, which that barrel has gone away. I think I've had 2 BCM barrels on this since the original Colt. This now sports a ballistic advantage 12.5. I'm a huge fan of the 12.5 length. PEC 15, as you can see, it's got a Surefire 300 Vampire on it because we do a lot of IR night vision stuff. And that's really it, man. That's one of my personal uppers from one of my SBRs that I was running on my work gun. And then my other gun, kind of like my general purpose, what I would call my general purpose gun, is a 14.5 with a Voodoo 1-8 on it. So
Voodoo, okay.
Yep, EOTech Voodoo 1-8. glass clarity is amazing. Red dot visible during the day, especially out here in Arizona. And the eye relief is fairly forgiving on it. So that is kind of just like my, hey, I'm going to go out and maybe go four-wheeling or do something out in the desert. That just gets thrown in the truck. And the reason I still like, one of the main reasons why I like LPVOs, but I'm hesitant to use for work, is if for some reason you ever lose battery, you still have an etched reticle. So you still have an aiming point, right? So some of the stuff that we've talked about in the past, Eric, some of your concerns, it's like, hey man, if for some reason some weird stuff happens, supply chains or other things, and we weren't able to get batteries, at least I still have an aiming point as far as an etched reticle in the glass. So
Yeah,
that
that
is
is a very good point.
Yep. So that is kind of like, hey man, if everything else fails, I still got an etched reticle I can use as for shooting. Where if the battery goes on this, it's kaput. If the battery goes on the EvoSec, I have to push up my flip up sights. So not
Which
that ever
is
had that happen, but it could.
Yeah, and again, in the the day of the red dot coming into prominence, many years ago, I mean decades ago, and we're
Yeah.
like, man, what if it fails, and of course we should have irons as a backup. I'm a firm believer in that, but they are to the point where, man, the likelihood of an aim point or an EvoSec
Yeah.
failing, if you've made sure that you've changed your battery on your birthday, you're probably going to be okay, and it's going to be working when you need it.
Yeah,
So,
100%, man. It's like pistols, right? Never thought we'd see the day where we would have pistol batteries that last as much as an aim point, and here we are.
yep. Again, as Aaron asked me, he sent me a text. Hey, did you change your batteries out on your birthday? Yep.
It's the best
I
way
mean,
to do it.
why not? I mean, even though they'll last longer, in many cases, the the T1 or
Well,
T2, man, is going to last
Yeah.
a long time. 50,000 hours, but it might as well just go ahead.
80,000, I believe.
Oh,
80,000.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
well,
Go ahead.
real quick, I was just going to say on that point, right? On our birthday, part of what I did to celebrate was go shoot a match. And
Mm,
dude, right when I got out there, I checked my 507C for my competition gun. It was going dim.
yeah.
A year later on my freaking birthday. And so I just swapped it out right then. Just kind of funny happenstance right there.
Yeah. I think our policy is every 6 months, just to be on the safe side.
Yeah.
So, just to touch back what you're saying, man, like again, for those guys that are sitting there going, man, I'd like to buy a rifle, but I don't know what to get. Buy something quality. I know it's going to hurt the first time around. Colt, BCM, FN, Psionics, Daniel Defense, whatever. Um, and as we were talking, guys, this is a secondary item for the general purpose American. Get yourself a good white. I don't have mine on here yet. I have to pull it off of that upper. Get yourself a good high quality white light, whether it be Streamlight makes some good stuff for reasonable. Of course, Surefire is kind of the standard. And spend the money on that, and then backfill your red dots or your LPVO.
Yeah.
Because
My rifle behind me over here, I'm running a Streamlight light on that one.
yeah,
You can't see it in the, it's around the backside, but yeah, that light runs well. Pressure switch on the top.
yep,
So I like to run it to where my grip, where I have to reach backwards. That's just my preference. Where I maintain my grip, I like
yes,
to have to reach back to turn my white light on. That's
yeah.
just
So
my
you're
preference.
exactly like me. So I'll shoot like this, white light.
Yep.
So
Cool.
now I may get made fun of. I don't know. But so this is my primary home
Yeah,
defense here. So it's an old 10 and a half. I actually think it's 10.6.
actually,
Um,
10.3 if it's a Mark 18.
Yeah. It
okay.
should be.
Okay. So yeah, I'm freaking love this gun. Battle comp on it. I'm still not decided if I'm putting a can on it or not. I probably will, but I'm going off on a tangent. I've got one of those. What are they called? Enforce.
Yeah.
Now it works for me. This one isn't super bright, but you guys may need to talk me into getting something else with the pressure switch. But I do like the simplicity of this.
So I know a guy that works for Surefire that can probably help you out.
Okay.
Send me a reminder. I'll put you in touch with him.
Yeah, we're game.
Yeah, I figured maybe I would either get get ragged on. I can't talk. I'm hydrating here, guys. I told you. But yeah, I'll give you a text and get in touch with that gentleman.
Yeah, he's a good guy from what I understand. So,
we may know him.
yeah, you guys may know him pretty well. I think he's looking at 6 times on the show.
Awesome.
Well, hey, so you were going to say something, Chris? Go
I
ahead.
was gonna say that's one more time than Cecil.
Shout out to Cecil out there. So real quick, because we're sitting about an hour, still got maybe another 30 minutes or so. And then I think both you and I are headed out to jiu-jitsu soon. I think you got a little ways up, but yeah, I'm here out on the East Coast. So to make sure I head out here pretty soon, but this is great topic and something I love. So,
and it's just we're having fun right now.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
absolutely. So as far as, your department uses 64 Winchester bonded.
Yes.
Do you have another choice that you prefer personally? And do you run something different in your personal at the house?
We SWAT's usually the test bed for stuff. So we looked at the all the bonded stuff because we wanted barrier penetration against vehicles,
Mm-hmm.
right? We go against a lot of people in vehicles. We got the test results from Texas DPS because they have one of the most exhaustive rifle caliber testings in the country that we were able to find, and they did Spare Gold Dot, Winchester. I have the PowerPoint or
Oh
whatever.
yeah, that'd be awesome. I'm sitting there writing notes here.
Yeah.
I'd love it if you don't mind.
And it's small, so I can send it to you, and it's got barrier penetration, soft gel, clothing, pretty much everything. And believe it or not, the Winchester, it wasn't the best at certain things, and it wasn't the worst. It was kind of middle of the road, and they just figured, hey, this thing does everything well, so this is what we're going to go with. So we looked at it. We got several thousand rounds of it, and I was a little bit worried because guys are like, oh, it's a bonded bullet. We're gonna have pass through. We're gonna have over penetration issues. So Patrol right now is still running the 55 grain TRU, which is, man, for open air stuff. And when I say open air, I'm talking no barriers between. It's a great bullet. We've had very good results with it. We recently had an engagement, and it was at a very short distance with this stuff, and the performance was phenomenal. There was absolutely no over penetration. The furthest round was 18 yards, 17 yards, like that. So no over penetration. Everything went into the threat and stayed inside the the body, and it was phenomenal. Very, very, very good bullet, and we were very happy with it. So now we're probably moving to that for all of the agency
for Patrol as well.
Yeah, for Patrol as well. The only other one that we'll look at, depending, because I will throw this out there. I don't know if it's the bullet design or what, but you either get a gun that loves it or a gun that hates it. And when I say hates it, I'm talking like 5-inch groups at 50.
Wow. So, ouch.
And a couple of people that we were talking to across the country say they think it's the flat nose bullet design. whatever. I don't know. So our other option is Spear Gold Dot, which is a 62 grain, but basically same design, same basically designed similar, but one's Spear, one's Winchester, right? So that's an option for us. My personal favorite, if you can find it, which is is 70 grain TSX, which is the
Yep.
brown tip bullet. It is available. It's not necessarily available, but there's a similar product out there on the civilian market, which is it's a Barnes.
Yep.
And it's like 70 grain, and they like the GMX or TSX, but it's not, of course, brown tip, but it's the same thing. But I think it's loaded to a different spec.
Interesting. Yeah, I've got several boxes of it.
Yeah,
I have not done much, but maybe about 20 rounds. I'm experimenting with it. But that I've heard your recommendations on that before, so I'm intrigued by it, and I like the all copper too.
yes,
I think that's
uh,
an aspect of it for and you'd mentioned this too, the shorter barrels, especially
yeah,
like an SBR or
yeah.
whatnot, would benefit from that round, right?
Yeah, because it was originally designed as what they called the 70 grain optimized. It was originally designed for SBRs for certain units. The other bullet that I love, man, is that 77 grain OTM, which I think Aaron runs in his
Yep.
guns, and
Yeah,
that is
that's what's in the one behind me here right now.
Mhm.
Yep.
Yeah,
so
that's what I was gonna ask. Now, so again, I usually am on top of this stuff, but so yeah, this is the 77 grain Sierra in
yeah,
a federal load. Now, this is not barrier blind from what I recall.
correct. It's just a Sierra Game King or a Match King, whatever they call it,
Hmm. And then
which is
because I have in this is my longer range carbine, so I actually, if I needed it, right? And so this has the federal 62 bonded. So that's what I keep in this one. But
yeah,
yeah, I purposely went with the 77 grain because of the performance you guys talk about and the fact that I purposely chose it because I recalled it not being barrier blind for indoors.
yeah.
So,
So, like when I built our snipers, they shot a lot of 308. All their primary guns are 308, and we started looking at some stuff. And we're like, hey man, it would be nice to have some 5.56 guns for that across the yard stuff where they don't need that 308. They don't need that distance. So what we did was we built some 16-inch, um, basically an SPR, 16-inch SPR with that 77 grain bullet. And man, what a combination! And they're just running the Voodoo 1-8s on it, and it's like the ultimate short distance precision gun. It'll do everything you want within 100. Again, as long as there's no barrier, like a car windshield or something like that. And of course, if that's the case, they're going to go to their bolt gun for the 308 anyways, or
Yeah,
their
yeah.
defense 308.
Well, good deal. Well, I think this might segue into drills. Can I know, so I'll just say, and I've mentioned this over the air, that you sent me a ton of stuff.
Yeah,
Um, and then, frankly, and I can hit on this real quick, some of Kyle DeForce stuff is all out there online for folks too, which maybe we may want to discuss some of his stuff too. But what are some of your favorite drills for the carbine? Some that can help people that are new to this, some that you might think are something that even experienced shooters should make sure they're out there doing.
man. So I've trained with Matt Pranka. It's third or fourth time we're bringing him out. Our team's bringing him out, and Ben Stoger. And that dude's kind of changed the way I really train. In what I want to focus on is very rapid, aggressive, accurate shots, right? So I think one of the primary things people should work on, again, ammo dependent, right? Not everybody has an unlimited budget to buy ammo. Not that I do, but what I'm saying is if you're going to work on some things, they should work, build drills from 7, start off at 5, start off at 7, whatever your capability is, and work those bills out to 25, 50, and understand that while the pace changes, the way you work the gun doesn't, if that makes sense, right? So the way I shoot a build drill at 5 yards is not the what's the word I'm looking for? The cadence I'm going to shoot it at 50. But I'm still pulling the trigger the same. It's just a slower cadence to maintain that accuracy standard. I like DeFore's stuff is phenomenal. I like for manipulations. Um, I don't. I think I sent them to you, Eric. I would the Mid South standards should be in that group of stuff I sent you.
It may be. I'll double check.
There's the operator standards, the squadron standards. The initial. They're shot at 3 yards, and then you can back up to 5. I think squadron standards are shot at 7. But man, if you can pass those, your manipulations are good. Your manipulations are really good. And if those are target specific for the most part, but if you can get Redback One, I can't remember his name right now.
Jason Falla?
Yeah, Jason Falla. His carbine and pistol standards are very Mid-South based because that's where they get a lot of that information from. But a lot of them just use an A zone, a bullseye, like a 5.5 or a 6-inch circle, and then like a 3x5 card and stuff like that. So it's basically the Mid-South standards, just rebranded with a different scoring zone. And I know those are in the books that I sent you.
Yep. Yeah, I was just looking at those again today, and
Yeah.
I'm going to be the next trip. I'm going to do the Jason Falla stuff.
Yeah, and it's challenge yourself, man. Shoot it at 7, you know. Shoot it at 7. I think you'll do fine. And I think 3 is a little too close. I think 5 is a little too close. But I think 7 and 10 yards is a good start, and that's what I would look at. As far as other things, you guys talked about adaptive rifle,
Yep.
couple of things.
Yep.
Man,
Holding it right here. Yep.
read that book, use that as a guideline, and if you can use that as a guideline and get semi proficient, you're a pretty damn good shooter. Like, man, CQB warm up.
Yep.
You ever want to feel horrible about yourself, man, go shoot that.
Yeah. That's a tough one, man. I shot that maybe a month and a half ago, and I gave myself I did the relaxed standards,
Yeah,
which I was able to squeak by a pass with the relaxed,
yeah,
but I left feeling, man, I need some work if I'm gonna compare myself to these standards, man. It
yeah.
is.
Especially the standard of CQB warm up. Matt's kind of like the high standard. I can't remember what he calls it. Especially, man, when you're 45, 47 years old, 50 years old, and you're shooting 8 rounds standing to prone in 6 seconds, you're like,
Oh yeah, yeah, that's right, man. That's what. See, 40-yard line.
it's 2 and 2, go to prone, 2 and 2, 6
Yep,
seconds.
exactly.
Yeah,
6 seconds. I, yeah, that's moving quick.
I looked,
I
I
Go
was
ahead.
like, uh,
Yeah,
right,
but
yeah,
that is an excellent set. I need to run that the next time I go out and see if my dry fire drills have helped me with some improvement. I believe that I will see some improvement on that one.
yeah, absolutely. You're going to suffer a little with an LPVO, for sure. Um, the other thing, man, is you can look at Paul Howe's stuff for somebody who's just getting started. His carbine standards, they should be in there. Uh, that's a good baseline. You know, I think he started maybe 7 and works all the way out to 100. If you have that capability to go to 100-yard range.
Man, I'm
Uh,
thankful I have the range I have. And usually
yeah.
I'm the only one half the time I'm the only one out there. It's a private range. There's only 200
Oh
members.
wow. That's awesome.
Yeah, and it's 15 minutes from my house.
Yeah, that's
So
like me, man. I'm pretty spoiled.
yeah.
Yeah. Uh,
So did I? And I don't mean to cut you off because if you got some more, I'm curious. Did I mention to you that I tried out that Ohio police carbine qual?
and you
Now,
split times. You did half times on it. Yeah.
yes, the times for the actual qual are, in my opinion, they're slow.
Yes.
But it was funny because I was looking at some of the standards like, well, if you just split this in half, then I think it would be a challenge. And literally, up closer, not as big of a deal. But once you got to 25 and 50, those times got real spicy, and they felt a little bit like Matt Pronka's time frame yeah. For folks out there that may know, and I've put it in the show notes, if you're pretty spicy with a carbine, try that at halftime.
Yeah. I'm gonna give that one a whirl, man. The other one, did you try the DEA qual that I sent you? The old DEA carbine qual?
I hadn't yet, but it's in my list.
Yeah, give that one a go, man, because I think that's 46 rounds of rifle and 4 rounds of pistol, if I remember right. Definitely give that one, like, that's a good, and shoot it, man, don't shoot it on like a TQ-21 or anything. Shoot it on an IPSC and go for A zone scoring. Allow yourself some Charlies, and anything in a D, I would say is a miss.
Isn't Yep.
You know, but yeah, man, definitely. I really, that's what we use for a night vision qual.
Oh,
Uh,
cool.
just because it's definitely it's a good qual, man. You got to start at the 60, run to the 50, shoot your designated drill there, then you run 50 to 25, shoot the number of rounds. It's a really good qual, and the times are, they could probably be a little more forgiving, but it is designed for federal agents. So,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
but it's not easy. I'll put it that way. For your average shooter, you guys probably drop a couple of seconds off the times and get on it, but it's good.
Oh, I'll definitely shoot that one the next time as well.
Yeah.
So,
Uh,
Chris, oh,
nope. Go ahead, sir.
real quick, I just wanted to interject this because you may have heard on, I don't remember which of our last shows you listened to, but I have, in the last few weeks, totally focused my training on not necessarily training, okay, but competition. So
Mm-hmm.
I am starting to hit a IDPA match or USPSA match or still challenge match every week
Yes.
because I really want to up my experience. My shooting's okay. I'm shooting fine, but where I'm falling apart is just a stage, right? Just the pressure, etc. I want to outshoot myself,
Yep.
outpace myself, etc. But one thing I'm really stoked about is that I found out that there is a practical carbine competition that's basically IDPA
Yeah.
with the carbine. We're not talking PCC because I'm not spending money on a freaking PCC. I already have a handful of great ARs. So I'm going to start hitting that. It's put on every second Sunday at Oil Capital Range here outside of Tulsa. Man, if I wasn't out of town next weekend, I'd be hitting that. But I'm going to start doing that too. I just think with the benefits of shooting competition with a pistol, I think it's just going to help me get my skills back up running. Because to me, the distances and skills that I need with my carbine, it's just like running a pistol when it comes to. It's just running IDPA stuff with a shorter carbine.
Yeah. Man, I think people put a little too emphasis on not shooting matches, right? Um, Man, I don't have the opportunity as much to go out and shoot matches. So when I go to the range, I don't know if you guys saw, I posted some videos of me and a buddy of mine shooting at the range yesterday, and we set up somewhat types of stages and shoot them.
Cool.
But when you start understanding correlation between how to shoot a stage and applying it to the tactical world, man, it will change your shooting. Because again, like I said, you know, I wish I had taken Ben and Matt's class 20 years ago. You know, I've spent a lot of time with Rob Latham. The unfortunate, he's a friend. He lives 35 minutes from me.
The great one.
Yeah, man, and he's phenomenal. But I think he is just so good and just so natural at it that he's kind of forgotten how to correlate it. Like there are times I'll ask him a question. I'll be like, "Hey, Rob, explain to me how you grip the gun." He's like, "Just grip the gun and don't move the sights." I'm like, "Okay, dude, you're talking to, my knuckles are still dragging on the ground, man. I got to me, that is absolutely crush the gun and try and pull the trigger. Well, then when I do that, I induce tension, which guess
Mhm.
what? Tension creates trigger freeze. It creates pre-anticipatory push or something like that, and I'm all over the place. Where Ben will be like, "Hey, I need you to do this," and he'll show you, and I'm like, "Okay, it clicked." It's kind of like jujitsu, right? Like, "Hey, show me what that feels like," and I understand it. And I've learned so much from Rob, basically watching him and asking him, and then he goes, I don't know if you guys have ever talked to him, but he's truly
Yeah, we've had him on the show before. Yep.
insanely accurate for as goofy as he is.
Yeah.
and as much of a nerd as he is, he's a Star Wars nerd and everything. The guy is scary intelligent, right? Like he's an awesome dude. But you try and talk to him, you're like, dude, just dumb it down for me, right? There's a reason I'm a cop, man. And, but then you go, and I think he's done it for so long. Sometimes he forgets how to translate it to normal folks, the non Rob Lathams of the world. And those guys are really good at it, man. In when you're able to have it explained in a way where, hey, this directly correlates to a civilian involved shooting, an officer involved shooting, an actual engagement inside a structure with the movements and the angles, you're like, okay, this totally makes sense.
And you're
And that's
talking about in a competition stage?
Yeah, because what are you doing when you're doing a competition, right? You are processing information to see where your next threat, we'll call it, is. And within that threat is angles, no shoots, moving targets, all information that you need to process, which correlates to making you a better shooter in the real world because you're able to process information so much faster. And that's realistically what it comes down to. And like, not to get down the CQB route or the building clearing route, but when a team or a set of cops or a civilian is clearing his house going through, what is he doing? He's processing information, right? And I think we talked about this back the last time I was on, or maybe the time before that, moving through your house for home defense. I need to be able to process information faster than the guy that's in my house trying to kill me and my family. And competition shooting will absolutely 100% get you better at that.
Well, and that's why I think even our last guest, I disagree when people say competition is not training. It may not be it may not be a specific type of training, but man, to me, it is training. What I mean,
So,
Competition, I believe competition is training. Qualification is not training.
yeah.
Qualification is an administrative checkoff so that when you go out as a cop and you shoot somebody, they can say, "Oh yeah, he passed his minimal standards state qual and he's good." You know, and I say a competition is training based off of the mental side of it.
Mhm.
You know what I mean?
that's what I was exactly what I was going to say is that competition brings in a mental element
Yes,
that you don't otherwise have in just normal in your normal training. Of course, we know we also have scenarios with sims and or UTMs is obviously going to bring in mental,
right.
but that competition realm that is absolutely training in my eyes is the mental side of the competition, both the pressures of shooting with your peers
Yes,
and the mental processing of the stage. Yep.
yeah. Go ahead, Aaron. Then I'm going to say one
W-
other thing.
Well, yeah, and that's what I was saying earlier, is that on the mental side, and I'm not nervous at competitions at all. Dude, I'm used to playing guitar for thousands of people.
That's awesome.
And so I don't really have nerves. Even I know it doesn't translate completely,
Hmm.
but I'm not nervous on the line. I am just in myself, hopped up a little bit, trying to do my best, and I'm running too fast, and that is 100% mental, because I'm like you said, I'm solving some little bit of, a puzzle, etc., in a stage, and needing I'm thinking about, okay, after I called that last shot, I'm gonna go ahead and solve this next angle, or shoot around this no shoot, etc. So
Yeah,
man, to me, that mental is awesome. So cool.
your stress is self-induced on yourself, on your own capabilities.
Mhm.
uh and what guys don't realize, man, is, if you come to one of your classes, one of my classes, you go to a competition, the skills you bring are the skills you're leaving with. It's up to you to increase that skill set, right? You come to me in October for the class, right?
Mhm.
um you're going to leave there. That day you may leave a little better,
Mhm.
right? But
Mhm.
at the end, the next day when you wake up, you're where you were when you showed up that day.
Yeah.
And the thing is, now it's on you to build that foundation to get better, whether it's with pistol or carbine.
Yeah.
So I will say, guys, that I'm going to have to start getting close to getting out the door for jujitsu. I got a few more minutes. I would like to bring up what is slightly a controversial subject,
Okay.
if you don't mind. Now, and I had already started a little bit of a conversation with you, and also premise it with this. I was texting Kyle DeFore the other day, asking him some question, and I brought this up, and that's the use of scaled down targets. So, and I'm not at all going to try to feed you any kind of thought process on this, but just hear me out, because I've made some discoveries in this even over the last week. My concern about the use of scaled targets is for one reason. That's when people do not have a range that's beyond, 25 to 50 meters. There are
Correct.
some people that do not have ranges beyond 25, but they still want to get better with their carbine. I think ultimately, and Kyle's response was they don't work, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, it was that simple.
Yeah. And I'm cool with that answer, because I happen to agree with him
Yeah.
to an extent, right? And so just let me explain to you something I discovered this week as I was thinking through this problem. And I promise you I'll let you chime in.
Nope. All
the
good, man.
the one thing that I did, I'm like, okay, yes, the problem is the zero, right? I
Hmm.
think ultimately that's the problem. Is if you are zeroing for 50 yards, you should, I had the thought, maybe I'll learn my dope. I played around with that a little bit, and of course I can, repeat, changing my clicks to the elevation of shooting at, say, 25. But I'm now to the point where I'm not as interested in that. But what I found is I was experimenting with running, and I'll just show you my target that I used. And I've been playing around with this 25-meter Alt C target, this
Hmm.
Army, and part of it's some nostalgia for me. But but anyway, the thing that I tried is I'm going to set a BC target at 200 yards,
Hmm.
and I am just going to sit here and I'm going to put some time pressure on myself and get shots on that steel, as quickly as I can get a decent shot off and still make, 90% accuracy. I then went right, and I figured about 40 yards is close enough for me to be able to see these targets, but also be close enough to my zero. And so that was one of the discoveries I had. Now, granted, I'm not writing home about all this, because you can see I've got some misses here, but a majority of my shots are still on the target at 40 and I'm putting that pressure on myself. I will tell you that at this 300 and the 250 or the 250, I felt like I had to have the same exact discernment and or probably a little more so than I was hitting that BC steel. And so I guess that's one of the things I was going to bring up. And I wanted to know your honest opinion about using scaled targets, if there's a place for them. Your honest opinion, buddy.
I really think, like you said, as far as range limits, hey, I can only shoot 25 yards, then yes, because you're still using that, and it's so overused. I hate to even say it, but the aim small, miss small thing,
Mm-hmm.
you're still using that with the 25 because you're going from, let's say, an A zone to a reduced A zone. So you're having to potentially drive the gun the same way, pause the gun, and press the shot as if you were going from an A zone at 10 to an A zone at 100, let's say, right? Um, I don't think it's ideal, but if it's all you got, it works. My thing with the whole zero that you were talking about is I think sometimes for defensive carbine use at normal ranges, we put a little, and somebody's going to get pissed off because I said this, and I'm going to make it real short. We put a little too much emphasis on actually zeroing the gun at that distance, because you've all seen, and I just blanked out on his. I mean, I must be getting old, but Way of the Gun. What's his name?
Way of the Gun. Goodness, now you're making me draw a blank. Yeah,
He's the either way, right? He does the 10 yard, 50 yard zero. Where you put a circle, go down inch and a half, 2 inches.
Frank Proctor.
Oh, Frank Proctor. Yep.
Thank you. Okay. And guess what? That pretty much works. If you can take at 5 or 10 yards, go down 2 to 2.5 inches, you zero at the dot, put your dot on the dot, press it, get a 5-shot group, dial down to where it's perfect, go out to 50. It's close enough. You might need to make some refinements left or right, but as far as elevation, it's pretty good. And if that's all you've got, that's fine. I think the overemphasis on scaled targets is we're going to get the same benefit as far as accuracy. And it just doesn't compute mathematically, right? Based off of the accuracy of the gun, the accuracy of the ammo, accuracy of the shooter. So the way I'm going to shoot at 200, I'm not going to have 5 rounds touching, because mathematically it doesn't work.
Yep.
That makes sense?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. But what I think it does do is what you were doing is perception, right? So just like scaled targets for dry fire with a pistol or even a carbine, I have my standard A zone target, my standard EvoSec target at 10, and then I have tailored targets across my house, let's say, or across my backyard. The ability to come up, stop the gun, drive the gun, and pause without over travel or lower or upper travel is perceptually the same. And I think that's where the benefit comes in if you don't have the ability to shoot at distance. Does that make sense?
Oh, no, I think that's great insight. And yeah, I think that's a good way to look at it. And really what started me on this road was I had several people ask me that question. Well, what do you do if you don't have 100, 200, 300 yard range? And also Claude Werner has also, he's slightly created that thought in my mind along with those questions that I had, and like, how do we solve this problem? I think the problem is that it's not solvable.
Correct.
I think that though having the capabilities to give folks options is something I'm still interested in. I think my initial thoughts on it were probably a little bit I wouldn't say naive. I would say that maybe my initial thoughts on it, until I really started experimenting with it, that the efficacies are starting to they're kind of somewhere in the middle now.
Yeah.
But the discover I had at 40 yards with this Alt C was a little more enlightening than I had anticipated. and something I want to spend a little more time on.
So what you'll see, man, and I agree with you. I just think that sometimes people mix the two,
Yep.
where they say, "Hey, my driving and manipulating the gun, combining with the shooting, they have to be separate." And I think you can take the exactly what you're doing, driving the gun, finding the target, getting down on it, translating it to actually being out on the live fire range is going to pay dividends on your end when you're actually doing it at distance. But guys will be like, hey, man, at 40 yards, I'm holding a group like this. And at 200 yards, I'm holding a group like this. And it's like, hey, man, you have to understand the capabilities of the gun. Like we were just talking. You also can use that to clean up issues, because what happens is, doing a lot of studying and talking to some guys like Matt and those dudes, what they see is 0 to 10 yards with a carbine on an A zone, that should be a throwaway shot. You should just be able to come up bop, 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 and do your build drill. They said 18 yards is about where we start seeing things go weird with a carbine. 15 yards, it should be a throwaway. And then right around that 18 mark, it happens to everybody. Well, my buddy and I were out at the range yesterday playing with it. We set targets up at just to be within distance and give some of the math, right? We did 9, 13, 18, and 20. And guess what? 9 and 13, clean, unless we were really hammering the target. As soon as you get to 18, that gun starts to sway and we're throwing a tight Charlie. Guess what? At 20, same thing. You're pushing a tight Charlie, maybe two tight Charlies. Our accuracy standard yesterday was you're allowed one Charlie. Other than that, it's an automatic failure. Pistol is the same way. 5 yards, 7 yards should be gimmies. Right around 12 yards with a pistol is where things go weird, right? So we set up the exact same course of fire, only with a pistol. 5 and 7s were gimmies. We did 5, 7, 12, and 15. Guess what? 12 yards now. We're starting to see some Charlies come out, right? 15, same thing. So, and it's all in the way you drive the gun and you perceive the target with the sights. And I think that's where the reduced targets will help you really clean that up. That's what I'm thinking on it.
I really like the way that you circled the discussion to a productive, a more productive version of what I had anticipated, and I agree with you on that. That's an interesting way of looking at things. That 18, it's been I don't know if I've recently shot at right at that 18 distance, but I definitely know when I'm moving from any of the 10-yard carbine stuff and then I'm, say, jumping to 25, I notice a huge difference in how much I got to buckle down to make my hits, especially if I'm, say, going for headshots at 25. Got to really buckle down. Yeah. That I love that, man.
And then if you notice, I sent you an I think it's LAPD qual. It's an old LAPD SIS carbine qual and the pistol qual. And it's weird, man, because their distances are odd distances. It's not 5, 10, 15, 25. It's like 12, 17, and 22. Those guys figured some stuff out, right? And good friend of mine, we're like, man, these are some weird yard lines. Well, if you translate it to what I just said, what I just learned from Matt, it's like, okay, they're starting to see those deviations, like 10 yards and in, their guys are rock solid shooters. They start hitting that 17, 18 yard mark, 15 yard mark with the pistol and the carbine, and they're starting to see errant rounds going. So I am definitely working, like, I'll do my bills at 7, and then I'll immediately push to 12 because that's where I fall apart. 10 yards, I'm good. Push it 1 yard, 11, 12 yards, I start to see some deviation. I'm like, man.
Very interesting.
Yep, same with my carbine. 15 and in, I'm good. You push me out 18, 19, 21 yards, I'm pushing some Charlies and even, I hate to admit it, some Deltas.
If you're pushing yourself,
accountability,
the Deltas
man.
exactly. I know you well enough. You're a killer shooter, man, and that no doubt is you're pushing yourself. I mean,
Yeah.
like when I was doing this, when I worked that one day working on the CQB warm up. Oh yeah, when you're
Oh yeah.
pushing yourself on that, and that's why I also like the fact that Matt and Ben said, "Hey, some Charlies are
Yes.
you're gonna have some Charlies." It's when you hit those deltas and stuff that you got to start going, whoa, what's going on here? Let's learn from this.
Yeah. And they do the whole like, hey, a hit on Brown is as good as an alpha, just to get your speed up. But man, really play with that 12-yard pistol,
Yeah,
18-yard carbine,
going
and
to.
really see. You're like, man, there's definitely some voodoo going on here. Give it a
Yeah,
shot.
I'm looking forward to playing with that for certain. Well, guys, on that note, if I don't grab my bag here and head out the door here in just a few minutes,
Yeah.
I mean, granted, it is open mat, but I told the guys I'd be there, so I'm gonna head that direction if that's cool with you guys.
Oh yeah, Chris, you gotta hit the mats too, right? Or did you already go?
No, I'm good, man. Class doesn't start till 1800, so I've got a little bit. If you want to hang out and talk, Aaron. If not, I get it.
Oh yeah,
It's up.
I'm good to go, man. I'm gonna head down to the pool. The last night my pool's open in my neighborhood with my family, so
So, real quick, and I know I'll let you get out the door, Eric.
You good?
Uh, October when you come, there's going to be a lot of this type of stuff going on the range, Aaron.
awesome.
And it's going to be very much a uh, teach people how to shoot, right? And not shoot for a police qualification, how to shoot for engagements. And it's going to almost be a combination of that with an instructor level day. So we'll take a shooter. When he's having an issue, I'm going to stand next to him and I'm say, okay, let's break this down, because I want guys to see that there's so much more to teaching people how to shoot other than, hey, stare at the front sight and pull the
Yeah.
trigger. You know what I mean? And I'm looking forward to you being there, because I honestly want your feedback. Um, because I can go down some rabbit holes and I need someone to kind of keep me on
Okay.
track. We're going to
Well,
shoot a lot, but it's going to be a train the trainer style class where
Man, I'm freaking jealous as hell. Golly. All I can say is we just got to make sure we do it again, either here locally here or another time back there.
sure,
So,
man.
oh, bro, I
yeah.
was floored when you texted me about you coming here, man. I can't wait. And if I can squeeze a half a day more, I'm gonna try it. But as people know, so Chris is showing up here right when I'm needing to close the books for September. As I'm an accountant, that's how I pay the bills. And that first day of close, I'm okay. But boy, you start getting on my second day of accounting closes, I'm gonna get some people pissed off at me. So
No worries, man. And you know, if you can shoot a pistol, you can just correlate, like translate it right over to your carbine. The pistol is way harder to shoot than carbine, and you can take what we work on day one, and you can tell Eric, "Hey, man, I just spanked you on this drill because of what I was taught."
awesome.
I can't
Well,
wait.
dude, let's drop this mic and say goodbye then on that one.
You
You guys
guys
have a
have
good
a blessed.
afternoon.
Thanks a lot, Chris.
Luck
Thanks,
at the
Aaron.
gym, man.
Yeah,
Take care,
take it easy,
guys.
guys.
Okay, guys. Bye.